Podcast 205, The Threads of Faith, a dialogue across time. ISBN 978 976 9747197. I am your host, Dr. William Anderson Giddens. Join me for a compelling exploration of faith and adversity. Today's discussion is a fascinating topic: the contrasting experiences of Job and Moses in their interactions with God. All things being equal, it's remarkable how both biblical figures grapple with the complexities of faith, pain, and responsibility, offering valuable insights into humanity's quest for purpose. As a Barbadian doctor of divinity, cultural theorist, photojournalist, podcaster, and media arts specialist, I skillfully collaborate to create a dialogue that explores the intricate paths that two men take as they go through the Pentateuch and the book of Job on their deep spiritual journeys. This conversation has produced an inquiring framework for examining the subjects of suffering, faith, and obedience by highlighting their unique challenges and reactions. Furthermore, the opening effectively emphasizes the intent and lucidity of both Job's and Moses' testimonies. By emphasizing their distinct difficulties and responses, I have created an interesting framework for examining the topics of suffering, faith, and obedience. The scene is set for an insightful examination that will explore the complexities of faith, suffering, and purpose. I can't wait to see where your exploration takes you. The world's creation, the establishment of Israel, the Israelites' enslavement, and eventual freedom from Egypt, and Job's unshakable faith in the face of unspeakable suffering are all covered in this podcast's exploration of the Pentateuch and the book of Job. I am emphasizing the creation of identity, covenant, and divine intervention through Israel's founding stories by examining significant events in Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. See Exodus 14:21-22. Nevertheless, it should be highlighted that Job's story is especially moving since he endures unspeakable pain and loss while being steadfast in his faith. His persistent devotion to his faith is evidence of the continuing strength of spiritual resilience, and his queries to God are a potent reflection of his humanity. The account of Job, on the other hand, see Job 1:1, chapters 13-14, 15-21, and 22-28, offers a poignant reflection on faithfulness and suffering. See James 1:17 and Romans 8:17, showing a man whose loyalty to God survives over the loss of everything. In the heavenly courtroom scene, where Job's faithfulness is put to the test, this perceptive interpretation highlights God's omnipotence and wisdom, posing difficult questions about human-divine connections. Moses, however, exemplifies a distinct kind of difficulty as he struggles with the demands of his divine calling and the weight of obligation. His eventual submission to God's plan is a potent illustration of the complexity of faith, and his hesitancy to lead the Israelites out of slavery is a familiar moment. Because it is an intriguing subject, the aforementioned has fostered an atmosphere conducive to investigation. It should be mentioned that the narratives of Moses and Job provide important insights into the nature of faith and the human condition. Both individuals show remarkable bravery and resilience in the face of adversity, and their encounters with God demonstrate their faith and confidence. However, it's particularly noteworthy that Job 7:19, and Moses, Exodus 3:11, 4:10, Exodus 4:14-16, are portrayed as skeptical and questioning in their interactions with God. This suggests that skepticism and inquiry are not only natural and necessary, but also an essential part of the spiritual journey. By asking questions and seeking answers, we demonstrate our commitment to faith and our willingness to grow and learn. Regarding the applicability of these testimonies, it should be mentioned that they examine the intricate connections between faith and hardships via the experiences and perspectives of Job and Moses. According to my book, The Threads of Faith, a Dialogue Across Time, ISBN 978-976-9747197, the ageless themes of suffering, faith, and obedience are seen from a different angle. While researching these subjects, I must admit that I find the contrast between Moses' journey, which is marked by his hesitancy and eventual obedience to God's will, and Job's story, which is marked by his unshakable confidence and trust in God despite unspeakable suffering, to be fascinating. The human experience of looking for meaning and purpose in the midst of hardship is profoundly revealed by both testimonials. I agree with what I have learned so far from observation that Job's story is especially moving because he endures unspeakable loss and suffering while remaining steadfast in his faith. His persistent devotion to his faith is evidence of the continuing strength of spiritual resilience, and his queries to God are undoubtedly a potent representation of his humanity. Ultimately, I have emphasized the various ways that God was involved in Job's and Moses' actual experiences. They both exhibit a spiritual curiosity. Moses' experience is directive and places an emphasis on action, whereas Job's meeting with God is introspective and centers on existential reflection. Moses' arrival from duty, Exodus 3:1, 12, 42, and Job's arrival from sorrow, Job 1:1, underscore humanity's basic struggle with religion and divine authority. In the end, Job's experience with God is in fact reflective and centers on existential reflection. God responds to Job's grievances and complaints by highlighting the intricacies of God's way and the boundaries of human comprehension. Job struggles to understand the nature of evil, suffering, and divine justice, since God's responses are frequently mysterious and difficult. Moses had a close relationship with God that was marked by direct communication and sparse revelations. Even if he doesn't perceive God in all of his splendor, the different stories show that the two characters are significantly related. In the scheme of things, the notion that faith is a journey rather than a destination, it recognizes that we must remain receptive to fresh experiences, revelations, and difficulties because our knowledge of God and our relationship with Him is ever changing. This viewpoint exhorts us to approach faith with curiosity, humility, and an openness to change and growth. Ultimately, the stories of Job and Moses emphasize the value of leadership and the part faith plays in motivating and directing people. Moses' development from a timid leader to one who is bold and self-assured is evidence of the strength of faith and the significance of having faith in God's plan. Finally, the call for actively engaging with our faith and the outside world is vital. The strength of Job and Moses lies not just in their piety, but in their active participation in their world, grappling with its challenges and injustices. This active engagement, combined and reflection, and a willingness to question is perhaps the most important lesson for future generations. They can learn to approach their own struggles with the same resilience, critical thinking, and moral questioning demonstrated by these enduring figures. Thank you for taking part. This episode is featured in the Threads of Faith, a dialogue across time. ISBN 978-976-9747197. As a cultural theorist, photojournalist, media arts specialist, and a Barbados Doctor of Divinity, I skillfully weave the stories of Job and Moses together to examine their profound spiritual journeys in podcast 205 and e-publication 361.